Hi everyone, this is Jenny with Homeschool Teens with Jenny, and I'm back for a final review on Sonlight American Lit. So we're going to talk a little bit about how it went, what the day was structured like as we were doing it, how we used it, what books were read, all the things. So let's start off with, this is definitely an upper level course. I would say 11th to 12th graders. You want a kid that enjoys reading, and even though you may not choose every single book to read because there are 25 choices, it goes really deep. It is really insightful into how to even approach different genres of books. I was really surprised with the depth of the program. It wasn't just a survey of literature where you're just reading stories and analyzing just the individual stories, but it also went deeper. In one of the selections, how to read a book, it would approach, and it's a pretty thick book, but we didn't read the whole thing, but we did read parts. And it would teach you how to approach different genres of literature. And I just thought that was a really interesting addition to the program. This is literature and composition, and everything's falling, sorry. So they also have a more instructional book as well on writing. So it's called On Writing Well. And so this is the classic guide to writing nonfiction. We did not use the composition component. The reason is just not that it wasn't well done or anything like that. I felt like the writing assignments that were presented were applicable to what they were studying, things they would need to know to get ready for college, all those good things. But my student has a really hard time with open-ended assignments. And even though they walked the student through, work on this day, focus on this day, he just had a real problem with the more open format. If you have a natural writer who enjoys writing, who's not intimidated by writing assignments, then this would work beautifully. But after the first assignment, we decided to switch to something with a little more structure as far as composition went. So we are using IEW level C. We used half of it this past year, and we're gonna use the other half of it his senior year. So that's just kind of how we went ahead and approached that. So we used this solely for their literature. We picked 10 of the 25 choices as far as just American Lit stories, not counting the instructional books. That would be How to Read a Book, On Writing Well, The Elements of Style. Those would be more of the instructional type books. We did read some of the 100 best loved poems, but my son and I are not poetry geeks. We attempted it. We worked on it for a couple months, and then we just put it down. It wasn't really giving us any enrichment, I guess. He interpreted things better than I did, and we were heavily using the notes in the teacher guide, but that really wasn't our thing, and it wasn't really a course on poetry. So I felt that was fine just to set aside, and we were happier when it was set aside. So let's just talk about the selections we read. The first one he read was called The Chosen. So it's this one here. And I asked him to give me a rating, 1 to 5 stars, 5 being the best, 1 being the least, and he gave this one 4 stars. He said it was very deep, and it was about Jewish culture and tradition. He liked it so much, he actually asked that I would purchase the sequel, which is called The Promise, and he read that one too, but he said that one was not as good as the first one, which typically, in my experience, sequels are never living up to the first one. So, but he did enjoy it. He gave it 4 stars. The next thing we did was short stories, and we have a compilation of O. Henry short stories in this course. And so I decided to pick 2. We were not going to do the whole book. And so we chose Ransom of Red Chief, and we chose The Gift of the Magi. I just did a quick internet search on the top short stories from O. Henry, and Then I looked at the mini descriptions on what they were about, and I just picked 2 that I thought he would enjoy. He gave Ransom of Red Chief 5 stars. It was his favorite. The Gift of the Magi, he gave 3.5 stars. Then after that, we read Up From Slavery. So that is the Booker T. Washington book here, just to give you an idea of the thickness. I do have an initial flip through of this where I show you all the books and I flip through them so you can see text size and thickness. I'll put that in the description below for you guys. He gave that 5 stars. He thought it was so well done, and he just very much enjoyed the perspective from Booker T. Washington, the character of Booker T. Washington. He just very much enjoyed it. So that was definitely on the top of his list for this course. Okay, so the next one was Evidence Not Seen, and this is a story of a woman's miraculous faith in the jungles of World War II. So more like a missionary biography. And so this was intense, and he told me it was intense. He enjoyed it by the end, but he said he gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it was really hard things that were not easy to grasp. And I think he struggled through it a little bit on what she went through and just the environment of World War II. He's a huge history buff. He loves studying about World War I and World War II. And so I really thought he would enjoy it, but I asked him halfway through the book, how are you liking it? And he goes, Mom, this is deep. And I could tell it was challenging, not just like vocabulary challenging, but the things that were presented in the book. So, but he got through it and he gave it 4 stars. The next one was The Outliers, and this is not in order, y'all. I'm saying the next one, but I don't mean sequential. I'm just saying the one I'm talking about. So this was one of the last ones he read. That's how I know that. But this is The Outliers, and it's a pretty thick book, but every single night after he would read it during the day, he was in my husband's office after he was done with work, and he would be sharing with him all the things that he read about. So much so, he had my husband buy this one on Kindle because he prefers digital format. And he's like, Dad, you have to read this. So that was a 4.5 star from him. He said there was a little bit of language, and that's why he docked it a little bit from 5 stars, but he said it was an amazing book. And in 11th grade, your students are going to come across language. They're going to come across some really hard things. I do make sure that it's not too much, and I don't want all literature to include all those things and to be constantly thrown at my kids, even on a high school level, but a little bit here and there to look past that and to judge the content of the book and what they're trying to get at and be able to overlook language like that when it's not constant through the book, it's just here and there. I'm okay with that, but I am pretty picky about what I put in front of my kids. The next choice is The Scarlet Letter. He gave that 4 stars. He said it was a good book, but it was a little too obvious. He could tell what was going on before it was presented. He said the secrets are figured out early. It gets a little boring when you know what's going to happen. So he read the original Scarlet Letter, and I was just reading bits and pieces, snippets as he was going. And I was like, I know I read this in high school. And I remember enjoying the story as a whole, but I don't remember reading, number one, that long. It took him 5 or 6 weeks to get through this book. And the vocabulary is very difficult. This is really high level reading when it's not abridged. So just know this is the not abridged version, and it was hard to get through, but I think in high school, we must have been assigned abridged versions because I just don't remember. Number one, it didn't take that long, but number two, we weren't going through the vocabulary that was that difficult. The thing I do like about Sonlight, though, in the teacher guides, they give you the vocabulary and then they give you the definition. And this is a long course. The reading each day could be from an hour to an hour and a half. Sometimes when it got too heavy or too long, we would just extend the assignment into the next day and bump everything back a little bit. And so I don't even know how you would get through all 25 books in just a normal school year without spending a couple hours a day on the course. But we didn't have that kind of time. So if he ever got to an hour to an hour and a half, I would have him stop, just let me know, and then I would bump things back for him a little bit. And we just took it at our own pace with the time that we had. And an hour a day is plenty of time to spend on literature. So that's just kind of my insight on that. The next choice was Jacob Have I Loved? And I laughed because he hated this book, y'all. He gave it 1 star, and every day I asked him, like, is it getting better? Because I was really hopeful that it would turn around for him because he was so miserable reading this one. But he read it and he gave it a 1 star, and he said it was all over the place. The story was just all over the place, and he called it a girl book. And so he just totally did not enjoy that one, but he read it. The next one was Brave Companions. That is this one. And this is kind of a historical account book, which I thought he would like because he loves history. And he did. He said it was okay. We did not read all the selections. Actually, all the selections are not even assigned in here because they stuck with American figures only, and there are some that aren't. So they skipped through those. And some of the essays can be quite long in there. So Sonlight already had condensed it a little bit. But he gave it 3 stars. He said it's biographies of different people. He only read the ones for American history, and it was a little boring. So he enjoyed it, but he could have passed on it too. I think it was just middle of the road for him. Okay, so he also read Tom Sawyer, and he did this one in place of Huckleberry Finn. Now, this book is the anniversary edition, and it is massive. But this is not all text. This is not, the book is actually just this much in the middle, and there's just a lot of extra content, okay? So it's not really this long, but it looks intimidating. He had never read any Mark Twain before, and I didn't really care which one he picked. I just thought he would enjoy Tom Sawyer as an introduction to Mark Twain a little better, and we already had it on the shelf. And so I let him pick which one he wanted to do. There was really no reason one or the other. I actually gave him a choice if he wanted to read both. But he chose Tom Sawyer, and he really enjoyed the story. He gave it 5 stars, and he said it was just a good, fun story. That's how he described it. Okay, the last choice is in Eternity in Their Hearts. This was one of the first ones that he read. And he gave this one 5 stars, and he said it was just 5 stars. It was just awesome. And my dad is a big reader as well. And I remember Jack saying, "Papa, you have to buy this book." And my dad did. He bought it and read it, and they were able to talk about it together. But he just loved it. It's the description on the front is startling evidence of belief in the one true God in hundreds of cultures throughout the world. My dad's a minister. He teaches Sunday school in a multi-generational Sunday school class, and so we all go. My son goes. There's some college students that come. There's middle-aged marrieds. There's middle-aged singles. I mean, it's just a mixture of so many ages and so many walks of life. And so Jack and my dad love to talk about this kind of stuff. And so they really bonded over this book. It was really sweet to watch. And I'm just so glad that he has my dad in his life to talk theology about, because they are both theology nerds for sure. So that was it. And that's what he thought about the choices. Like I said, we just used it for the literature component. We dropped things here and there, like the poetry, and we substituted the composition. And like I said, each day took between an hour and a half a day. And that was with us just saying, when you get to an hour and a half, or if you're done at an hour, it's okay to stop and push it to the next day and just extend it. So just know it does take a good chunk of time. How I use the guides, we really didn't use the student guide at all, because the questions were done orally. He's already doing a ton of writing. He's not a big writer. He actually has dysgraphia. And so I keep writing to the composition assignments, and I keep writing in other subjects a little less. So we use the teacher guide heavily. And it is marked up all over the place because there were some reads we took out, there were some we extended. But how we used it was I would ask that he looked at the vocabulary in the teacher guide before reading, and he would do that just to be familiar with the words. He would do the assignment, and then if I was available, we would do the questions orally. If I was not available, I asked him to read through the question and the answer in the teacher guide. And I really thought that the author was of Sonlight was just very thoughtful in their responses. And so I wanted him to read through that for literary analysis, and just when those hard subjects came in, the authors of Sonlight did a really great job of putting it in a biblical perspective, from a biblical worldview. And I didn't really think that that was cheating. It was looking at things from an academic perspective that you may not have had before. It really stretched him to think through some things that he wouldn't have thought of before. And so I liked that approach. I thought it was fine. There were times we talked about it and did it orally. There were times he read it from the teacher guide, but that's what worked for us. If you homeschool teens, the one thing I will say is that their schedule is not always your schedule. And the older they get, the more true that becomes. If they choose to do a job and work a little part-time job on the side, or they have other commitments. And so, you know, some of them, I let my kids sleep a little bit. We try to get started by 10 every day when we do school, but I let them kind of create their own schedule because they're going to have to do that in college anyway. I give them a checklist at the beginning of each day, and I say, this is what needs to be done today. And they're the ones that prioritize their day and learn how to plan their day, pace themselves, because that's preparing them for higher education when mom's not always there to say, did you get your math done or whatever. You know, I really try to instill some responsibility in them early on so that they have that practice. We start that in 9th grade. And so by 11th grade, he's really got the pace down of what he likes to do. And sometimes you're doing something and they don't have, you know, access to you at that moment. And so we've had to learn how to adjust different curriculums when mom's not sitting right at her desk. I'm always available to them, but I might be changing a load of laundry. I might be at a doctor's appointment, whatever it might be. You know, it's different when you're homeschooling high schoolers. And the best way I can sum it up is just to say, your schedule is not theirs and theirs is not yours. And sometimes you rely on alternatives. And so that's why I use the teacher guide as well in that way. So hopefully I probably totally over-explained that, but I just wanted to kind of mention that because that is a little homeschool nugget and tidbit that I've learned and having 2 homeschoolers this year. I've had a freshman and a junior. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. If I forgot something or you have a specific question, please leave it in the comments below and I will be more than happy to get back to you. And I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you in the next one.